Let's start this conversation, though, with Nick Freeman now, who's a criminal defence lawyer specialising in driving offences, also known as Mr. Loophole, and also Professor Sirian Gilmore, who's chair of the Alcohol Health Alliance UK and is a liver disease specialist. Morning to both of you.
Morning. Good morning.
Nick, starting with you. At the moment, what is the penalty for drug driving in general? What can happen to you?
The minimum period, if you're convicted, is a 12-month disqualification, a financial penalty. It does carry a maximum custodial sentence of 6 months. So that's the minimum and the maximum sentence. And obviously, from the statistics that you've quoted to us, people who have been convicted multiple occasions, that the upper end of that figure is woefully inadequate. The drug driving problem, the figures, the statistics you've quoted is the tip of the iceberg. As we know, there are very, very few police on our roads now. And most people, many people just assume, first of all, they don't feel under the influence because it's literally, for drug driving as opposed to drink driving, it's a tiny trace that stays in the system for up to 2 or 3 days. So people genuinely, for the first time, if they take drugs, don't realise that they could be committing an offence. Paradoxically, with drink driving, we have the highest drink driving limit in Western Europe, and you are available. You can accept a drink drive rehabilitation course, which offers you 25% discount of the period of disqualification. But more importantly than that, it educates you. And there is so little education about drug driving. You may recall the adverts for drink driving, how we've managed to socially stigmatise it, although it is in fact coming back. We need to adopt several things to help cure the problem. The first one is education. The second one is increasing the top level of punishments for those recidivists who continue to offend. But also, we need the police on the streets, on the roads, and they need to have the power to conduct random drug and drink driving tests. They don't have the power. They have very restricted power under certain circumstances. And we need to give them the power to simply say, I am conducting a random drug test. As I say, the vast majority of people, I mean, I had somebody came to do some work at my house, and he said he was going to watch the match. He was going to a pub. He said there'd be 20 men there. They'd all be taking drugs. They'd all drive there and they'd all drive home. And they didn't pay the slightest attention to the possibility of being caught. And one of the reasons is they don't feel under the influence. And often they're not. It's not a question of impairment. It's a simple question of breaking the law. Yeah. Whereas with drink, at least you know, I'm impaired because the level's so high. It's far too high. The level should come down for drink driving as well, but that's another conversation.
Yeah, and there are, and I mean, people might not feel impaired, but of course there are awful consequences in some cases where people have taken drugs. In October, for example, Sean Mulligan, then 48 of Seaside in Eastbourne, East Sussex, was given a 5-year prison sentence and disqualified from driving for 7.5 years after admitting causing death by careless driving while over the limit for drugs and alcohol. He crashed a scaffolding van into a car travelling in the opposite direction on the A281 near Henfield, killing its 71-year-old driver, Jennifer Allen. So, look, this is a really serious issue. And it's fascinating that people think that drugs leave their system maybe a bit faster than alcohol because they wake up and they don't they don't have a hangover or whatever, or they don't still feel as though they're a bit drunk if they've taken drugs instead, and they assume it's left their system, but it can stay in their system for even longer. That's really interesting. Professor Sirian Gilmore, turning to you, you're chair of the Alcohol Health Alliance. There's a lot of awareness out there about drink driving. Is this something you now needs to be transferred to drug driving? Do you think we need better awareness? Do we need better punishments? As Nick was saying, what do you think is the answer to this?
Well,
I think we're going to have to do some work on your line there. Sorry, Sirian. Coming back to you then, Nick. There is only one drug driving course, I believe, in the UK. So why is it that we don't have drug driving awareness courses when we have drink driving awareness courses? Is it just because there's been this perception that drug driving is a more niche thing, that it's rarer that people take drugs than drink alcohol?
Well, that will be a huge misconception because it's far more prevalent than drink driving. People now take recreational drugs as part of their life. They get into the car, as I've said previously. They don't think twice about it, and they don't appreciate that it's literally the drug driving laws in relation to 17 drugs are literally zero tolerance. So a tiny trace, so you have a spliff, say, on a Wednesday, there will probably be a trace of that in your system on Friday night. You won't be affected, you won't be impaired, and I'm not in any way advocating that makes it all right. What it means is, in contrast to the drink driving laws, where you do tend to feel impaired, the problem with drug driving laws is the limit is so low that people genuinely don't know. And that's why education is so important. If we don't get that message across to people, number one, you're breaking the law. Number two, these are the consequences, and you will get a criminal record. And people need to know, make an informed decision as to how long the drugs stay in the system, because they genuinely have no idea. I'm sure many people will be shocked when I tell them that you will have a drug on a Wednesday and it will still be in your system for testing purposes by Friday night.
Yeah.
That's quite horrific.
Okay, well, Sirian, I think we've got your line back now, and I'd love to know what you think is the answer to this. Why don't we treat drug driving in the same way as drink driving, and should we?
Well, certainly should be doing much more about drug driving, but the world is not perfect for drink driving either. People have to pay for their course, which is to drink. I think it's £250 to go on the course. Although they do get, as you said earlier, they do get a reduction in their sentence. But after alcohol is impaired, unlike the case with drugs. And as Nick quite rightly said, we're the only country left in Europe with a drink driving level of 80 milligrams per cent. It needs to come down immediately to 50. And then we need to look at the Scandinavian models where it's really not tolerated at all. And of course, the combination of alcohol and drugs is one few, and that's something we're getting more aware of, the combined dangers of taking drugs and drinking.
All right, Sirian, thank you. Your line is still not great, actually, so I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That was Professor Sirian Gilmore there, Chair of the Alcohol Health Alliance UK and Liver Disease Specialist. And also, we spoke to Nick Freeman, who's a criminal defence lawyer specialising in driving offences. Really interesting to get his take on the legal situation here. I want to talk to